for the last 15 years, YouTube as a channel, as a medium of consumption has played such an important role in my life. The longer I've stayed on this track, the more I feel this calling of like, Tyler, you gotta do something that's unique to you, that only you can do. It felt like my heart was just, that video feels like my heart is just exposed, it just feels like probably the most vulnerable thing I've created.
Hey there, I'm Sagar Soni. If you are a chronic overthinker, a wannabe productivity expert, and is having a hard time understanding how to squeeze productivity out of every waking minute, but also learn how to take a chill pill, then you are in the right place. Let's learn from successful people, YouTubers, book authors, podcasters, and every other stranger that I can get my hands on. Well, figuratively, let's learn how they balance their life. Welcome to Beyond the Speech. Thank you very much, Tyler, for coming on this episode. It means a lot. We have to thank the YouTube algorithm because I think the first time I came across your videos were through Matt D'Avella, the one where you talked about the disappearance of Matt D'Avella.
Right.
Now, I know you have a couple of thousand subscribers, and I've been monitoring it that every couple of days it's going up, but I still feel like you have won the lottery and you have made it, because when Matt D'Avella enters your chat, your comment section, that's how you know that you have officially reached that level now.
Yeah.
Did you expect that? Did you expect a comment from him, or did you expect for him to see the video at all?
It's a great question. First off, thanks for having me. I'm excited to have a conversation with you. And yeah, the Matt D'Avella video, I didn't expect him to really watch it. I knew that the video idea itself of kind of trying to unravel his situation, it was so interesting to me as a new YouTuber with, a couple thousand subscribers, this situation of how could somebody who's really kind of made it, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of us kind of aspire to be something reminiscent to Matt as far as success goes on YouTube. And to have him share that, he's having challenges, right? He's facing some mental health issues. He's not enjoying YouTube as much anymore. And so when I was reading his newsletter, I thought, man, this is so interesting, especially as someone who is new to YouTube. Like, how can I potentially do my best to avoid this challenge in the future and learn from Matt's vulnerability on it? And so I started kind of writing the idea, and I didn't know if he would ever stumble upon it. I thought maybe it'd get a couple hundred views, honestly. But I did actually reach out to him prior to posting it, because I did use some of his footage in the video, and I also just wanted to make sure he was cool with it, because I respect Matt a lot, and I'm actually part of his Master YouTube course, and so I really respect him, and so I sent it to him prior, and he didn't get a chance to respond prior, but funny enough, it ended up on his algorithm and showed up on his YouTube page, where he clicked it and watched it, and gave some really insightful feedback, and also responded to the email. So he's been really great throughout the process. To answer your question, I really didn't expect him to watch it, let alone leave such a thoughtful comment and engage with the video. So I was really happy about that. I really didn't know what to expect making a video about Matt, but the idea itself was so interesting to me that I had to execute on it. And so it's been great. I mean, that video I think has 37,000 views now, and I can tell that YouTube is definitely kind of serving that up to some of Matt's fans, which is great. So it's been a cool way to connect with new people like yourself. So I'm really excited that people kind of found that video compelling.
That thumbnail did the job.
Yeah.
I know. I have been part of the first cohort of Master YouTube. So that's where I met a lot of people who were in the same boat as me, brand new YouTubers. So I've been watching Matt during COVID time. It's when I first started watching his videos, and that's when he started his course. So I joined it. That's where I came across Matt for the first time. So yeah, I agree that there is a fan out there of Matt's work out there. And what's funny is that it's interesting that you think that, these guys have made it. You look at Matt D'Avella, you look at Tim Ferriss. I don't know if you listen to his videos or podcast. He's one of the biggest podcasters out there, Tim Ferriss. And he came out with a 20-minute episode where he talks about the exact same thing, that even if they are at that level of success, they still fall under the same overthinking, overanalyzing, being really tired and exhausted and burnt out. And they Tim walks through his daily steps of how he gets into that trap on a daily basis, and he's trying to convey the message that it's not just us who are in the early stages of making it through, but even people who have made it at that level are struggling the same way that you and I are. So it's very interesting to see the other side.
Yeah. And by the way, I love Tim. He's had a huge impact on my life since reading, even the 4-hour work week in college and some of the concepts in that book. But yeah, it's fascinating because we're all facing problems that we're looking to solve. They're just different problems. And it seems like many of the challenges you face once you've quote unquote made it, are almost unavoidable, really. I mean, and I talk about that in the Matt video, like what it takes to get to that level of success creates its own problems, right? Where you're now you've productized yourself and you're this entity online and you need to meet expectations and continue to make, especially with Matt, for example, his quality is so high, right? His videos are so thoughtful. The cinematography is just world-class. So to maintain that week to week has to be a huge burden, right? And you've seen him kind of flex his creative muscles in a new way and his vulnerability in a new way with his bonus Diavella channel, where he's kind of having a bit more fun with it, isn't thinking so much about monetization or quality, so to speak. It's him kind of just showing us some insights into what he's facing, what he's working on with the studio, with the new course, all that. So that's been a cool outcome of, although Matt sounds like he's gone through some challenges, some fruit from that for us as viewers and as fans. We get to see this other aspect of his life that we didn't get to see previously. So,
what's interesting is that this is what it comes down to doesn't matter how popular you get or how famous or successful you get, but if you have that community, that brand of fan following, the 1,000 true fans, that analogy that even if he's just shooting the shit out there with those videos of how he is building his office, you and I, people like us, are still going to watch till the end, even though that video has no meaning. He's just showing us what his life is like right now. And I would still watch the entire thing because I love the way he talks. I love his thoughts. I love the way he communicates and tells his stories.
Absolutely. And that, at the end of the day is about trust, right? We trust and like Matt as a person. Of course, we admire his work and we were sucked in because the work is so compelling and high quality, but he's built over years trust with his fans that I think is hard to match. And hopefully, I mean, in my journey on YouTube, I hope to emulate that the best that I can, right? And I think the tension between these two problems is like, as a small YouTuber with a couple thousand subscribers, trust doesn't matter because I don't have a large enough audience to really build that. I mean, it does matter, right? But the focus when you're smaller is how do I get people to even look at me, right? It's like, I can't necessarily make a video about my office and people care, right? So when you're in the early stages, you do have to think so much about the right video idea and the quality of the thumbnail and title and this and that to attract the audience. And so it's just different problems, right? But at the end of the day, I think Matt's a great example of how at the end of it, even if you do go through challenges once you've made it, if you have that foundation of trust with your community, the right people will stick around and they'll enjoy what you're doing no matter what. They'll enjoy it because it's you. And I think that's pretty unique to YouTube in a way where, you can build so much trust through video and audio and conversations like this where people really feel like they know you and they respect you and they trust you. And from that foundation, a lot of really cool things can happen.
Absolutely. See, I'm going to disagree a little bit on with you on one thing that you said, that as small YouTubers, because I have been under your comment section and I see a lot of people resonating with the idea and the storytelling that you have. And I'll tell you, it's a different, unique way of storytelling. So from what I've seen in your videos, I see that you are poetic. Your storytelling art is something else than most other YouTubers. And after watching that video, I landed on another one of yours, which was when you moved to a new town and your journey and your feelings about it. So I think it started from Kansas to Seattle, and then you were in Austin. What was that progress like? What was that transition? Well,
first off, thank you. That's really kind of you to say. And I I think there's a poet in me for sure that tries to channel itself through YouTube. But yeah, my journey. I grew up in small town Kansas, town of 15,000 people or so, and then went to college in Kansas as well, and then kind of took this journey out to Seattle, Washington, and went out there without really any friends or really a job. I was trying to do the writing thing, so I was looking for freelance writing gigs, and that worked okay. I mean, I was able to pay my bills living in like a house with 5 people, but it just wasn't sustainable. So I transitioned into actually getting into sales. So I found that although I'm an introverted person, some of the writing skills and communication skills that I developed over time and just through reading books and whatnot really translated to me becoming a pretty good salesperson, oddly enough. And then the introversion helped as well because I could listen better than a lot of other sales reps. And so it made this nice combination where I was like, hey, this is working for me. I think I could be successful at this. So I took that route and kind of got into technology sales for a while. And I lived out in Seattle for about 4 years. But I had this underlying desire, and I knew it from college. And then also thinking about Tim Ferriss's influence, he talks about like the concept of mini retirements, like miniature retirements throughout your career. And I just love that idea. And I really wanted to spend some time traveling, doing the long-term travel thing. So I left Seattle, quit my job then, and did about a year backpacking through Southeast Asia. And that was beautiful. And then COVID happened, and I kind of had to come back and lived in Kansas for a short period, lived in Nashville for a short period, but ended up coming back but deciding to move to Austin. And it's been really rewarding. I kind of thought I was late to the party. I know everybody was moving to Austin around that time, but it's really paid dividends in that there's a lot of cool, creative people here. People are very friendly. And so that's how I kind of ended up here. I've been here for about 3 years now.
Oh, okay. What countries did you visit when you traveled in Asia?
So I started out in Thailand, and then I went to Vietnam, Cambodia, went to Malaysia, Bali. Then I looped up to Nepal and India, and then that's when I had to come back. Actually, I was in India when I had to return. So,
good timing.
Yeah.
Good timing.
Yeah.
Yes. What part of India were you in?
So I started in New Delhi. I was there for about a month, New Delhi, and then went to Rishikesh, and then Dharamsala for the last bit there, and then
nice.
Kind of came back just in time, actually, before the lockdowns got serious. So I was lucky in that regard that I was able to get home to family and all that.
I see. I am Indian, and I haven't been to any of the places that you just mentioned.
Yeah. I was doing a bit of the spiritual search in a way. In Rishikesh, I got to go to one of Muji's satsangs. He's been a spiritual teacher that I've always admired. So that was really cool. And then in Nepal, I did a 10-day Vipassana retreat, which was really intense, but very rewarding as well. So lots of my leanings towards Eastern spirituality and philosophy is in part what really took me there. I was lucky enough to live with some monks in Thailand for about a week and just explore like sincere practice of meditation and learn from the cultures in which these practices were created. But and that's in part what I hope to do with some of my channel is to try to find a way to like integrate self-actualization from like a productivity point of view and achieving things worldly, but also mixing in, like even in that Matt D'Avella video, at the end, I essentially do a guided meditation, right? It feels it feels a little bit out of left field, but I want my content at the end of the day to point towards certain spiritual truths that challenge people to, I guess, figure out what's true for them. And I think, meditation, mindfulness, insight practice can really be fruitful in that regard. So if my content is differentiated in some way, I'm hoping I can strike the balance between productivity, achieving things in the world, actualizing your potential, and also having a foundation of spiritual insight and truth behind the whole thing. But easier said than done. We'll see how it works for me. That's not really a niche, right? It's like definitely as you're getting started, you're like, well, what's your niche? And I'm working on that. I have ideas around my content pillars and what I want to talk about, but there's a reason a lot of people just pick spirituality or they just pick productivity. It's because people know what to expect. And so we'll see how it works for me as I try to combine the two, right?
I see. See, this is the picture I have painted about the work that I've seen of yours. I think you have a captivating way of telling your story, the storytelling method that you have. You like to combine creativity and personal development together. Now, that's where I think your experience of traveling has brought that side out of you, where you are constantly thinking about productivity because of the people that you follow, like Matt D'Avella, but then you had a whole new experience of spirituality, and you want to just combine those two worlds together. But then you have attempted writing before. So where did YouTube come from in all of this instead of continuing with writing?
Such a good question. Because, yeah, the initial dream was really around writing. Like it was starting a blog. And I remember I made a video that I wanted to put on my blog. But YouTube, I think it stems from, first off, just being a fan of YouTube. I mean, for the last 15 years, YouTube as a channel, as a medium of consumption has played such an important role in my life. And I just always loved it. And then I think for me, the reason that I feel YouTube is at least for right now, my authentic expression over writing. But in a way, it's to think about it. I mean, YouTube kind of is writing to an extent. Like the type of content that I want to make is essentially, it comes down to writing. And you can look at individuals like Dan Coe, for example, who really what Dan is a writer, and then he translates that writing to YouTube. But I think what I love about YouTube is, although I run into so many constraints around videography, cinematography, and how to run a camera and things like that. It's just not in my skill stack at this point. But what I love is using my voice, and I guess maybe it's because the track that I took with sales and communicating with my voice and in real time and trying to tell stories, it feels natural for me to take what I'm writing and just to share it vocally. Like it feels rewarding to me. And then something about being in front of the camera, although it's still uneasy for me at times. I'm sure you understand when you get in that flow state of communicating what you've created, it feels like the ego kind of just disappears and you enter that state of flow that really only for me compares to maybe like when I'm playing music or something, or I'm doing something really on the edge of my skills. But something about that combination of, at the heart of it is the writing. It's what's the message, but then there's the fun of like communicating it and like going somewhere and shooting it. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I mean, I sometimes notice I have limiting beliefs around what's possible for me from the cinematography point of view, because I don't have those skills yet. And so I think for me in the beginning, I'm thinking about Matt, the way he kind of frames it up in his course, where he says, hey, you need to pick two strengths. One is your filmmaking chops. One is your personality, and one is your content value. And you need to pick at least two of those, right? You got to have at least two of those to have a successful channel. For me, I'm definitely going to be leaning on my personality and hopefully my content value. And then optimistically, the skills and the chops around using a camera and making it look more cinematic. Ideally, that comes with time. And now that I've made the decision to essentially allocate all of my time to YouTube and I quit my 9-to-5, I should have a lot more time to allocate to learning some of those skills, which I'm excited about.
That's a neat way of putting it. It's when I got into the same journey as you did, I quickly realized, not quickly, took over 2 years to realize this, that the difference between writing and YouTubing is that when you write something, now you pick Threads or Twitter or blog or newsletter, you pick any of those, you write it out the way you're talking to someone, and then you send it out. The obstacles that get in the way for YouTubing is that now you have to take what you have written and transfer it to visually presentable. That's where YouTube becomes a challenge. At least that's where I noticed that do I really want to learn all of this, or is my main aim just communicating my thoughts? Because if it's just about communicating your thoughts, then there are other mediums of streams for you to access as well. So I know what you're trying to say here is just that there are more obstacles and barriers if you want to focus on YouTube, because it's not just sitting in front of a camera and then talk, but then if you want to be Matt D'Avella or any other influencer or YouTuber you follow, if you want to follow their styles, there are multiple steps that we have to go through to make it visually presentable, that somebody is going to spend 10 minutes without any distraction watching your content. So I get what you're trying to say there.
Yeah, that totally resonates. Like the amount of skills it takes to make a great YouTube video it's an insane amount. And for example, I ideally, if I'm honest with myself at this point in my journey, I don't want to go shoot B-roll. Like I don't, because I'm not skilled at telling stories through video. For me, it doesn't seem like, it doesn't add value to me. Like for me, at this point in my journey, I don't have the skills for B-roll to add value. At this point, it would just be the screen changes, and like I get it. We do have to cater to attention spans, and YouTube is super competitive. But I feel you. Like if I could just do a channel where I can just sit down and communicate my story with just A-roll, just me talking, that would be awesome. But at the same time, I feel like that may not be enough in this day and age. Like you gotta, I do see channels of people who I've grown connections with who literally do just set up their camera, they hit play, they don't edit it at all, they just speak to the camera. And I personally enjoy it. So that proves that it's possible that you can be successful doing that. And part of me does wonder if like maybe people are going to get burnt out on this same over editing, everyone following the same guidelines from the same YouTube gurus over the same like past 24 months. It's like, I think it's possible that maybe there's a new wave of authenticity where people want the less fancy, the less glamorous edits, but I don't know. That might just be a belief that serves me because I don't have the skills to do it. I don't know. We'll see.
No, I think I have seen your other videos, the one where you talk about opening your heart. That video was you just pressing record and going all in. And have you read the comments on that?
Yeah.
Trust me, there are people out there who are watching and resonating with the material. And that's why I say that you are poetic, because the way you bring story into the words you are laying out, there is something there that does not require that level of editing. I'm not saying change your trajectory, because everybody goes through that trajectory. If you see my videos, I have 70 plus videos on my channel, and a lot of them have those 30-day challenge videos as well. And just like Matt. But then when I look at it, I'm like, the amount of time I enjoyed in this entire process of 20, 30 hours that I spent to create this video, my favorite time was writing the script. My least favorite time was shooting that B-roll, which was just a filler for my video, just to please someone on the other side of the television.
Yes.
Right?
And so what keeps you going on YouTube? Like what drives you to make videos when you've come to, it sounds like you're pretty clear that like, you know, what part of the process you enjoy versus not enjoy, you know,
That's a very, very, very easy way of putting it. No, I do not. I feel like you and I are on the same trajectory, but I am probably 1 or 2 steps ahead in terms of clarity. And that's where this podcast comes in. The only reason I am doing this is because I have no interest in editing, which is why I have a great friend who's editing these podcasts, even though podcasts are easier to edit compared to clean products with B-rolls and Matt D'Avella stuff. But I don't want to do that part either. All I want to do is what my curiosity is in my head. I want to communicate that with someone on the other side of my camera. That's all I want, which is where this comes in. And from this podcast, I am leaning over whatever we talk about here. Let's say it's an hour-long conversation. How do I summarize that in 10 lines and then send it over to someone else who doesn't have that hour to watch this video? That's what my aim is. So I think we are completely opposite. You started with writing and are going towards YouTube. I started with YouTube and I'm trying to focus towards writing, because that's where my interest lies. It's just about resolving my curiosity, what's in my head. That's all it is.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. Because when I was thinking about my content strategy, so to speak, I mean, at this point, as I'm still working it out, right now I'm just trying to solve my own problems, my own curiosities publicly. And like, I know that may not drive fast success by any means, but that's kind of what I'm doing. That's what's most interesting and real for me. Like, I'm sure I'll have content where I look back and provide insights from my past experience. I have some of that on the channel, whether it's, making new friends in a new city. I learned a lot through that process doing that a couple times. So I share some of those insights. I share insights from moving to a new city generally, and people find value in that. But right now, what I find most fun and interesting is what is holding me back from executing on this YouTube journey, and what insights can I share along the way. And so I feel you. It's trying to find that balance of resolving your own curiosities and problems, and also making it clickable, consumable. It's an interesting balance for sure that I look forward to figuring out over the long term.
Have you figured out what is holding you back? If there are any labels that people have placed on you as a writer, or what degree you graduated with, but now you want to become and start this journey. Have you figured that out?
I've thought so much about it. And I actually made a kind of lengthy video with some of the reasons why I feel constrained, or, I've kind of quietly dabbled in YouTube for basically 10 years. And the desire to do it just hasn't gone away. I thought it would just go away, but it stays consistent. And so with that, I have to kind of face, like, what is this deeper truth or deeper pull to do this type of work? And why am I not doing it consistently? And I think there's a few things. I mean, one thing that I kind of got clear on was I don't know exactly where this could take me. Because the thing about a corporate job, 9 to 5, like, you can kind of map out, there's stability in it. You can map out where it's going to take you. You're making a salary and you can save and do all these things. It's predictable. I think the unpredictability of something like YouTube intimidates me a little bit. And so not being clear on that ultimate vision, and not only the personal benefits, but the impact that's possible for me to have, being vague about that has not helped me, right? That's one thing I'm getting clear on right now is, where can I really go if I commit to this 100%? And getting clear on that has been helpful. The other thing that I actually struggled with, switching from like personal life to potential impact for other people, is it sounds crazy, but part of me questioned sincerely if it's possible to really help people through YouTube videos with some of the topics that I like to cover, whether it's spirituality, or social life, or like, I don't know. I guess I just had limiting beliefs, and maybe still do, about like how and if this content can really serve people, and if it's not exclusively just a selfish endeavor to try to like build my own business and be an entrepreneur and create content. But to your point, when I read comments, like, I get data that contradicts my belief that I can't help people, and so that's been an interesting one to be like, well, Tyler, you think that your stories can't help people, but the comments clearly say that some people either feel understood or can relate at minimum, and isn't that a good enough reason to do it? Like, yeah, I think it is. So those
Absolutely.
are some things that I wrestled with. And the last thing would be, which now is changing, but doing the 9 to 5 corporate sales grind, like, I have an inclination to kind of be all in on what I'm doing. So when I'm doing the sales grind, I mean, I've really enjoyed that as a career path, because it takes a lot of useful skills that you have to refine, whether it's communication, writing, active listening, asking the right questions. It's really an engaging career path, and it can be lucrative too. So if you get really good at it, you get paid more for being better at it, right? And so with that, it's like, I've really put a lot of time and attention into just being great at that. And through doing that, I've kind of burned myself out a bit. And so in doing that, I haven't had so much energy for creativity. and I haven't had so much energy to make content. And
Yeah.
I've kind of pushed myself to my limits where, Tuesday next week is my last day at my 9 to 5. And the reason I'm choosing to do that is so I can do YouTube and just focus on it and see what happens. Because what I've never really done is gotten all in, truly given all my attention to just sitting down, writing all day, working on videos all day. And so that's completely new. And I'm curious to see what happens from that.
Yeah, I think that level of clarity is required. Otherwise, you are just in that automated line of 9 to 5, and then you can potentially extrapolate your next 20, 30 years. So in order to go all in and get that clarity, choosing one path over the other is absolutely important. I I appreciate you sharing this, because if you ask me to quit my 9 to 5 and do this, I don't have that level of energy, or I don't trust myself enough that I'll make it successful on the other side of it. So I love that you are doing that. But you sharing this actually answers one of my questions, because you were talking about how YouTube is ruining your life.
Yeah.
Now I get to see what it really means to deconstruct whatever is going on in your head and then start from the ground up. So that makes sense. I like that. So in terms of ground up work, do you see, I know you are still quitting next week from your regular job, but do you have a path laid out about, in terms of clarity, in terms of YouTubing, strategizing, what is the next path, let's say for the next month or two?
Yeah, good question. So a lot of the groundwork has been done in that, I've taken the courses, I've mapped out my financial plan for how this is going to work and how long I can sustain. So right now it's really just about execution. And as far as mapping out my days, I mean, my days are going to look similar to an extent in that, I'll wake up around 5:15, go work out for an hour, come back, have coffee with my girlfriend, Carissa, and then sit down. And now I'm just going to be writing. Like, that's going to be the core of everything that I do. So uninterrupted writing every day for a few hours. And then also getting rid of some of these distractions that are reasonable when I'm kind of coping through the 9 to 5, but are not reasonable when I'm going all in on YouTube and I'm burning through my savings. So things like Twitter's got to go, Instagram's got to go, unless I'm posting on Instagram for some reason. Even like kind of bullshitting with friends, like I'm going to tell my buddies, like, hey guys, until noon, I'm not going to be in the chat. Like I just got to dial in. So I think in part, the productivity and the output is going to be a byproduct of the situation I put myself in where I don't have any income, and I'm actually nowhere near monetizing on YouTube. I mean, technically I'm close to the monetization requirements, but I mean, I know for a fact I'm not close to making a living doing YouTube. So for me, honestly, I don't know that I'm going to be successful at the end of it. And I'm comfortable with that. I've thought a lot about that, but I'm comfortable with what I have on the line. I'm comfortable with failing in that I don't make a living on YouTube. I'm comfortable with that. But what I did do, and what I've been thinking about a lot just generally, and I think will be reflected in my videos, is I did the most authentic and true thing for me. Like the most true thing that I could possibly do right now was to put in my 2 weeks at this job. I'm burnt out on it. I just can't. My body's basically telling me, like, Tyler, you actually can't do, even if you wanted to keep doing this, you can't. You can't like physically do it. So there's that piece. And then the YouTube piece, for whatever reason, feels like my ultimate expression right now. And maybe that changes. Maybe in like 2 months, I'm like, I hate making videos. It's actually not that fun. Doing this full time is not my thing. Or maybe I find, hey, what I really want to do is write. I don't really want to make these videos all the time. But what I look forward to is getting to the truth of that and just having no doubts about it. Instead of doing this kind of, I feel like I'm in between two worlds right now where I don't know the truth about what's possible on YouTube, and I just want to figure it out. I just want to see, even if it's epic failure, it's like whatever. That's fine with me right now. I'm at a unique point in my life, and I'm so blessed that I can even take this opportunity to take a break from the 9 to 5. And if I have to step back into that, I'm okay with that. That's perfectly fine. So
it's funny how you are exiting that average club that I am part of right now, and you are exiting that club. So it's energizing for me to see someone take that leap of faith and just completely believing in yourself. And when you say that, what's the worst? What the outcome is going to be in 2 months, at least you are authentic. You don't know what the outcome is going to be. But I feel like every time something like this happens, think about the worst case scenario. What is the absolute worst case scenario? You have marketing experience. Go work for another marketing agency.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world, right? You have been used to living with 5 other people in an apartment. That's really not the worst case scenario. There are so many bad things that can happen coming out of this. If that's the worst case scenario, you still owe it to yourself to do it.
Absolutely. And
right?
One practice that I did this when I quit my job and went to travel. And I did this when I made this decision to quit my job. It's actually a TED talk from Tim Ferriss, and he calls it fear setting. Like in the same way we do goal setting, he says, you can basically do fear setting, where instead of having these kind of vague boogeyman fears about why you shouldn't do this big decision, sit down and literally write out all your fears specifically. And then in the next column, write out things that you can do to alleviate the risks of that thing happening. So what can you do to minimize the chance that worst case scenario happens? And in the third column, you list out, okay, worst case scenario happens. Then what can you do at that point to get your life back on track or to survive or whatever? So you start to make these things real. And that's, sometimes you just got to shine a flashlight on your fears and just look at it and be like, okay, worst case scenario, my finances go to 0 and I have to get really scrappy and make something work, or, lean on support from family or friends, or, you start to make it tactical. You're like, well, that's manageable. And then after you do all that, you actually do an inquiry around the cost of inaction. Like in 5 years, if I don't do this thing, how am I going to feel about that? What could the implication be of not doing that thing? If I look back 5 years from now and think back, oh man, 2024, when I was thinking about quitting the job I was burnt out on and doing YouTube, I wish I would know what would have happened. I just couldn't live with that outcome. So, getting in touch with the fears in a more distinct way, where you can look at it and say, actually, I think I can alleviate that risk. In the worst case scenario, I survive it. I can survive it, right? That was really empowering for me and helped me make the decision. And at the same time, I've been thinking about this decision for quite a while, and I just hit the point where the universe just kind of told me, in a way, you don't have a choice. And part of that's the burnout. Part of it's just the inauthenticity of it, I guess. Like what I was doing felt more and more out of alignment with who I really am. And maybe it's the nature of getting older. Maybe it's the nature of having a bit more financial security and stability, and knowing I have some skill sets that the market appreciates and will pay me for. But the longer I've stayed on this track, the more I feel this calling of like, Tyler, you got to do something that's unique to you, that only you can do. You don't need to be famous. You don't need to be important, but like there's a voice in you that wants to be expressed, and it's important that you express it. So that's where I'm at now, at this kind of fork in the road, where I'm leaning towards trusting that inner voice and seeing what happens, and just remaining non-attached to the unfolding. I mean, I want to succeed. I would love to make a living doing YouTube. That'd be cool. And also it's, I don't have the right to that necessarily. I have the right to make what I feel compelled to make. And if people like it, that's awesome. And if it doesn't result in me making a living, that's okay. I can at least look back to this moment and say, hey, you lived your truth and you paid the consequences for it.
Right. There's one journaling technique I usually do, and that is exactly what you said, that if you continue down the path that you are on right now, what does your 5-year future version look like? And when you answer that, and if the answer is exactly what I'm doing right now, that is a real eye opener. That if you're not happy with where you are right now, then it gives you a kick in the butt that, okay, it's time for some action here. So always in that, on a daily basis, if you do journaling, then having that prompt is nice to have, because it's a constant reminder of, okay, I need to do these actions. I need to have that bias for action. Otherwise, my life will be exactly what it is right now in 5 years, and I'll be looking back with regret.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I saw, it was actually a Tim Ferriss tweet. I saw it yesterday. He was referencing BJ Novak, who's a writer, and
Office. Yeah.
yeah. He's great. And I think BJ used the prompt of, if you're ever thinking about making a decision or leaving something, but at the end of the sentence you say, "But I'm making a lot of money," that's an indicator that you should probably leave it. Like, if that's your best reason to do something. I mean, granted, we all need money, and obviously we all have different situations, but if that is the only reason that you're sticking with something, and it's not life or death, and it's not going to destroy your life if you were to make a different decision, then you should probably lean towards your calling if you can. If
you can, you owe it to yourself.
Yeah.
So, okay, now that you have your YouTube plan laid out, where do these ideas come from? I think your process is probably similar to mine, but then your storytelling is different than mine. For example, if I am reading Atomic Habits, I would learn about the 4 stages of habit building. I'll lay that out and then I'll talk about it. Or if I read the book Mindset, then I know, okay, that's what the difference is between growth mindset and fixed mindset. And then I write a script and then I lay it out. Do you have a similar process for your storytelling, or where do these ideas come from, and how do they translate to a full-blown polished video? Mm-hmm.
This is by far the hardest part about making YouTube videos more consistently. The video idea, because there's so much pressure on it for me that I keep getting paralyzed at the step of just committing to the idea. I could talk about kind of how I get to the different ideas, but just to emphasize, and I'm sure you feel it too, there's just this, it's so competitive on YouTube, and it's almost like you gotta have an idea that's original, compelling, concise, and looks good as a thumb. It can feel so high pressure, at least it does for me. And I think in part it's because, let's just say I churn out 1 video a week for the next year. But if they're the wrong video ideas, my channel might just stay flat. If I do 5 to 10 of great video ideas, my channel could explode. So it really is a matter of scale and leverage, right? So the idea matters so much. So I share that because the pressure of that, I think, is kind of getting in my way a little bit when I decide what to make. And so for me, I basically took some ideas from Dan Koh, and he has a course called the 2-Hour Writer, and he basically tells you to pick 3 content pillars. One content pillar is a theme or a subject matter that excites you. One is a subject matter or theme that interests you, and one is a subject matter that can make you money. And so I kind of have 3 different themes. One is, I call it self-actualization. You can call it personal development. One is the spirituality theme. And then the third one, I think it's kind of morphed over the past few months, because I think I need to talk more about authenticity and creativity in YouTube. So I kind of have these buckets of self-actualization, spirituality, authenticity. And beneath that, I think around problems that I solved that have had a meaningful impact in my life. So for self-actualization, I've done things like, backpacked, or I've moved to new cities and started social lives from scratch. I'm an introvert. So it's what are some unique problems that I've faced and overcome? And those itself the problems that are being solved in a way can become your video idea, at least for me. So for me, it's like an introvert's guide to meeting new people, right? It's niche, but it's a real world problem that I've solved that absolutely changed my life. It's not like how to brew coffee in the kitchen. It's like this is a incredible life-changing insight that I want to share. So there's basically the themes, the problems that I've solved or I'm trying to solve, which is kind of more so lately what I'm focused on. And then just kind of there's a video on my channel called My Authentic Path to 100,000 Subscribers. And I kind of actually walked through this process. So maybe you can link to it, but I kind of use a combination of Dan Coe content pillars and video ideas from that. And then I use a combination of Matt D'Avella, and he has a great checklist around, should I make this video? And there's a list of questions. So I kind of start with the content pillars. I go into problems that I'm facing or that I've solved, try to find the idea within those problems that would be compelling for people to watch. And then I switch over to the Matt D'Avella, should I make this video checklist? And if it kind of works with all that, then I'll add it to my queue to start working on. And then once something is like, hey, I think this is a good idea, I kind of right now just follow where my excitement goes. Whichever idea has me thinking about it a lot or feels most acute in my life, whatever problem I'm trying to solve, I kind of just follow my energy and my excitement as far as what I actively work on and execute at the time.
I see. Okay. Do you follow Ali Abdaal at all?
I do, yeah.
I forget who he was talking to, and he started with this logic about the problem with the analysis paralysis is that you are constantly going to stay in that area where you don't know where to go next because every idea seems to be like a good idea, but then you start working on it. And then, as you said, that where your energy takes you. Oh, probably a week later, while you are not done with your first video, a week later, that energy might shift to a different idea. Is it wise to shift your focus onto the next idea before you finish the first one? And his example was, it's important to have that many reps after reps after reps and just publish it out there. And you would never know where that story, where that experience is going to take you next. And he was talking about some third friend or maybe someone, it was hypothetical, I can't remember, where he was saying, there is a guy out there who loves playing guitar. His dream is to become a rock star out there. But then after playing it for a little while, he realizes, oh, maybe this is not the best case for me. So he starts posting it on YouTube. Now, when he goes on YouTube, someone catches that video just through the algorithm. There is somebody out there who is a music producer. That music producer contacts him and says, do you want to come work with me? And then we can work together and produce music. Now that idea of this little kid playing guitar in his room when nobody else is around has shifted to going on YouTube, publishing his videos, and the experience that he has learned along the way. That led to a music producer looking at his videos and asking him to work together to produce music. Now the aim was to become to play guitar on a concert stage, but now he's a music producer. So what the story is here is that whatever it is in our path right now, whatever energy we are trying to use right now, just go with that because you never know where it's going to turn out into. And you might be happy with where you land as well. And you might not even predict where you were originally trying to go versus where you are right now. It's the same story that Dwayne Rock Johnson, he talks about how he wanted to be in the NFL, can't get it. He goes to CFL, can't get it. Then he goes into wrestling, then he becomes an actor. He's like 25 years ago, there was no way I wanted to know that I wanted to become one of the most paid actors in the world. He wanted to play football, right? But you just have to keep going and then hope that the reps that you have put out there, that will eventually lead to something that was originally meant for you. You just didn't know in the moment.
I love that story. Yeah, thanks for sharing that because
it's something to think about.
Yeah, because the paralysis is definitely not a productive place to be. And what I think is when I think about why I'm doing this, it's I'm not trying to be a guru. I'm just trying to share what is interesting and useful for me, and hope that resonates. And if that's really what I want to do, well, then there's endless content for me to make. I don't need to be perfect. I don't need to have the perfect idea. So yeah, it's really alive in me, wrestling with this idea of coming to the right idea, especially because that Matt D'Avella video, it's performed really well. Like, so like now there's like, oh, what's the next great idea?
Exactly.
But it's not helpful, right? And so I need to focus on what's alive in me and what's most authentic. And I think on a long enough timeline, that will lead to some type of success, even if that means just a really connected community, or I'm having more fun, whatever the case is. Like, I just feel like sticking to the most authentic thing I can create will be fruitful for me. So
I see. In all of this, when you come across ideas, do you have a tracking system, how you organize your creative ideas?
Right now, I've since probably Tim Ferriss's influence, I've always been like an Evernote guy. So I'm in Evernote, and I just I actually want to get. I was actually. It's funny. I was recently looking at that meme it's like a meme of like a bell curve it's like a productivity meme where it's like at the low IQ bell curve is Apple Notes, and then at the top of the bell curve is all these productive Notion, Evernote, these apps, and at the smart side of the bell curve it's Apple Notes again.
Is again Apple Notes.
Yeah. So I'm actually thinking about going back to Apple Notes because I have had some tactical problems with Evernote that have gotten in my way of like switching between devices, but not to get into the tacticality of it. All of it lives in Evernote right now, where I have kind of a doc within my notebook that's just ideas, where I jot down just like random spur of the moment ideas. And then I kind of create a queue to prioritize which one's next and where I want to go. So that's been pretty good for me. I mean, it does its job. I think, I had a bunch of ideas 6 months ago that now I'm like, I'm going to not do those, but that's just part of the process. I think I'm doing my best to not judge ideas and just write them down and think through them as they come up. So that's kind of my current. But how do you do it? Like, what's your process look like?
It's along the similar lines. So I use OneNote. I have the Microsoft Office package subscription going on for years now,
Nice.
which is good because I could be a MacBook or PC, or it could be Android, or it could be iPhone. It will be everywhere, which is why I've always used OneNote. Now, the way I note down my ideas, I would encourage you to, even if you think that those ideas are not going anywhere, still keep track of it. And every once in a while, just go through them. Because I have come across this before, that I would go listen to this podcast. I'm just walking or jogging, and then I would write it down. Months would go by before I even realized, oh, that was a good thought to have. Maybe this could turn into a video. So I have made the habit that anytime I learn something on OneNote, there is a giant list of ideas in there that could potentially turn into some sort of a video or audio content. That's all I always do. So, and it could be books, it could be podcasts, it could be anything else.
Awesome.
That's how I do it.
Yeah. And I'm curious about, your continued journey with YouTube. Like, do you have, I guess ideal future state, this unfolds exactly how you imagine it. Like what role would YouTube play in your life? And what does it look like?
So I think that comes down to every new YouTuber's journey, where everybody wants to become a YouTuber. And that would be one of my questions to you as well, that everybody wants to be a YouTuber. But when you get into the business side of it, that's when you realize that successful people don't usually rely on the ad revenue of YouTube or anything, or because that's very minor compared to what the real thing is. That's why when you look at the business side of it, people use YouTube as a marketing funnel. And that's where my podcast comes into play right now. I haven't even posted a single video yet. You are number 5 for me. I'm just batch recording everything right now. And then I'm going to post all of them together so people have a collection of it from there for them to choose from. Now, when you think of YouTubing, so my podcast would be the main thing, which would turn into sponsorships. Same thing will be on YouTube, but YouTube will play a role of spreading the videos and my podcast out to more people, because it's hard to grow on podcast than it is on YouTube because of the algorithm benefits. But to answer the main question, all of this I'm only doing because I want to be a public speaker. That's where my main aim is at. Now, I've been wrestling with this. It's a funny story whenever my friends listen to this, because I'm still friends with my high school friends. And we all went to this leadership class, and that's where I was introduced to what public speaking really looks like. And that idea has put in the seeds since I was, I don't know, 16 or 17. Till date, nothing has happened to that. But maybe some of that energy has transferred to YouTube, but now the clarity has really been towards public speaking. So that's all I'm doing here. I'm just trying to build connections, resolve my curiosities, and see how I can transfer all of this into a stage and maybe help out anybody else. Now it could be 100 people in a college seminar, or it could be 1,000 people in front of a stage. I don't know where that's going to land, but right now the clarity is only towards building podcast episode after episode. That's it.
That's amazing. I'm glad I asked, because that's such a beautiful example of like your deepest truth and authenticity still shining through, and you taking steps to actualize it. I mean, that's amazing, man. Public speaking, and you knew at a young age, you're like, there's something here that I feel called to eventually express.
It's that I have not felt that much burning desire since I was 16. That's a sad thing to say. That was 16, 17 years ago, and I have not felt about a single topic in my life since the last 17 years. That's the only thing that I can look back into. It is a nice surprise that I still have that memory, but then it also sucks that I haven't implemented anything towards bringing back that desire, which is why I am stuck to that now. And I'll be honest here, this over analyzing and analysis paralysis that comes our way when we dive into the world of over analyzing books and podcasts and watching and just sitting on the couch and constantly going after different YouTube productivity videos. That's bad for you, because you don't have the bias for action. You are just in consumption mode. But in the last couple of weeks or last 2 months, after that, when I came to this conclusion that I want to be a public speaker, I tell everyone that even if you are in that consumption mode, take it lightly, because you never know, maybe that's what you needed to get the clarity of where you really want to be. So even though I was cursing at myself that why am I wasting so much time just gathering the knowledge and not really doing anything? But I still feel that just because I was consuming so much, maybe that's why I led to this final conclusion that all of this will come down to public speaking. At least that's what my experience teaches me.
I'm glad you're talking about this, because there's something inexplicable about how these things unfold. Like you can't think your way into that tipping point where you're like, actually, I'm going to do this for real, and I'm going to tell people that I'm going to focus on it. It's like you actually, like you said, you don't know how these different influences impacted you and why at this point in your life, this specific moment. Like I can't explain why necessarily I'm quitting my job now to commit to YouTube today instead of 5 years ago when it was still something that I wanted to do. Like there's something about the passage of time, and I think just our own life journey is where, there's no reason to judge ourselves for being patient and getting to the point where we're sincere about doing the thing. And I can tell that you're completely sincere about this, and the fact that you're telling your friends and stuff, I think that's awesome. Like I love to talk to you a little bit about that experience, because I'm still getting comfortable telling people, like, I kind of keep it vague for the most part. With coworkers, I keep it vague because, it's professional relationships. I don't need them to necessarily know. But even close friends, sometimes I'm like, they're like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to focus on some creative endeavors. I'm going to focus on writing. But I'm still getting comfortable, oddly enough, saying, hey, I'm going to commit to YouTube. And there are people that I absolutely own that with, but I'm still getting comfortable with like, holy shit. I'm actually doing this thing, and like it's time for me to own it in a different way. And I think, once my work is actually complete on Tuesday, I intend to like be more forthcoming with people. But what's your experience been like, just owning it, just being like, hey, this is what I care about, this is my path, and this is what I want to do? Like, what's that experience been like, especially with even some older connections from high school and stuff? Like, I'd love to get your point of view.
So I'll be honest here. I'm privileged. I have the unfair advantage of having good parents and amazing friends.
Yeah.
Because when I posted my very first video, I am embarrassed to show that out, but I will never delete that very first video because I can see where I came from 70 videos ago.
Wow.
I can see that. But when I posted that video among my friends, it was an unlisted video. I said, I'm going to post this. And I sent it to my group chat. And I said, watch it. No for making fun of this. That's what they said. That's what I said to them. And everybody gave their input. We are a group of 7 guys. And now most of us are married. So now there's 13 of us in this group chat. And everybody was supportive of this. But every time I go by 2 months, maybe a month and a half, and go into this rut of trying to figure out what I want to do, and I don't post videos, it's one of these 7 guys who would come and tell me, what are you doing? You wanted to take this seriously. This is not going to work, because if you post one video every 2 months, that's not going to take you to the level that you really want to be. And I take those opinions very seriously, because 2 of those guys are entrepreneurs themselves. They quit their full-time job and have been struggling for the last 4 years and finally reached that level where everything is that they can call themselves successful, that they have made it. So I take their opinions very, very seriously. So I think I have that unfair advantage of people that I'm okay with telling them. And I think that's where my energy comes from, that if there are my closest friends who can really rip me apart and with whatever I want to do, if they are serious in giving their feedback, I think my energy comes from there. That if somebody asks me, what do you do in your spare time? I say, I read books, I record YouTube videos, and now I just started a podcast. I think that's where that energy comes from. And the same thing goes to my parents as well. When I first, this is a funny story. When I first created the video, the very first one, and then I casted it on my TV and my family was sitting there, I was so nervous that just sitting there, this is December in Toronto where it's crazy cold, I was sweating in the room because everybody was watching my very first video. And I still remember that feeling because the energy and the feedback and the encouragement that I got from everybody else around me, that's where I think I'm more confident now. And I think it's a little bit about speaking as well, because I like to think that I'm a good speaker. So that speaking also gives me the confidence. But I think number one comes down to just doing number of reps at a time. I have attended Matt D'Avila's YouTube course. I've attended Ali Abdul's YouTube course. I am part of Sean Connell's, what's that? Growth with Video. That's the platform. I've gone to his conferences now. So I feel like all of this and meeting other people in the same world, having reps after reps, and obviously having the unfair advantage of great friends and family, I think that's where I get my confidence from. So I think it will just come down to how many reps you put out there, and soon you will reach that level that you'll be able to say that, oh, I quit my 9 to 5 because I'm a YouTuber now. Doesn't matter if you have 5 videos. Doesn't matter if you have 50 videos.
Man, you have me inspired. You're really serving me today, because if I'm going to own this, I got to own it, and I'm excited and nervous to do that. And hearing your story, and the reality is, every time I've told somebody, they've been really, really supportive. I mean, it's been awesome. And even yesterday I was getting a haircut I've been telling my barber about some of the stuff. And at the end of the cut, he was like, what's your YouTube channel? I'll subscribe right now. And as he said it, I was like, I kind of got nervous, like, oh no, my barber's going to see my YouTube. But it's like, yes, Tyler, you're doing something publicly, and that's
the point.
Yeah. It's like people, and he's trying to support me. Like, he's being cool about it. But it's funny that the introverted, nervous kid in me still pops up where, but luckily this time I caught it quicker, and I was like, Tyler, it's okay to feel nervous about that. I get it. It's kind of vulnerable, but this is part of it, and he's supporting you. Like, it's amazing. So I'm excited to go on this journey with it. And even my most recent video was about me facing my inner critic in my self-talk, and I think that's a part of that, of like learning to feel confident in what I'm doing and embracing the love and support of people around me. So I loved hearing your story. That's got me. It's got me fired up today.
I think when you think of being nervous, there was one Tony Robbins video I saw years ago, and the way they he portrayed it is that he's like, I have been doing this for 30 years and I'm still nervous to this day when I go on the stage. Nervous does not mean you don't know your content or you're scared. Nervous just means that this is the adrenaline that's coming out of you because you're about to do something that thousands of people are going to see right now. So it's important to learn to sit in that discomfort and just be okay with that, because nervous doesn't mean you're doing something wrong, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Let's go back to one of your other videos. It was 3 years ago. It was about how to move to a new city. That's the one where you talk about how you have a closed heart, but until you take that pressure off and you open that heart and you realize that it collapses. But at the end of that video, that's what got me teary. And that's because that's where you dropped that bomb in that video.
Yeah.
I myself included, and I have friends in my circle as well who have gone through some traumatic things in my life and in their life. I want to know, did that change you? Did that change the way you look at your life, and how is that translating to the real work that you do? It could be 95 or it could be YouTube journey, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to watch that one. I mean, that video itself is part of the reason it reconfirmed this calling of mine, because to kind of summarize for people, because it hasn't got very many views, in part because I actually kept it hidden for a while because it felt too vulnerable in a way to actually share.
I'm glad it's public now. But yes, please summarize the video for someone who hasn't seen it.
Yeah, so I moved to Austin here by myself, and within my first couple of weeks here, you know, I was feeling kind of anxious and down, but like I was trying to do my best to get out there and connect with new people. And I went out one night and went out by myself and was at this bar and met this woman who was also there by herself. We had this amazing connection that evening and spent a few hours together, and it was just beautiful. And it just felt like such a serendipitous connection, and you know, it felt like we were destined to kind of connect that night. And soon after, she ended up ending her own life. So she committed suicide, and it brought up so much for me because I didn't really know her, right? I mean, I knew her. We had this chance connection that we both went out that night, and we were both seeking connection, and we found it in each other. But also, it was like, you know, I don't know where that was. It was just a lot of emotions, and so in kind of working through that, what came out, man, was poetry. It was like I couldn't not write that thing down. And it was like, I have to tell this story, and I don't, like, all this energy in my body, I don't know what to do with it. I mean, I was in therapy, so that was part of it, working through it in therapy, but also this poetry, like these lines just kept coming to me, and it was like, I gotta like write this down, and I gotta record it, and I gotta share it. And I did share it, and I got some loving messages and support from friends who, you know, were empathetic to my situation. And then eventually it felt like my heart was just, that video feels like my heart is just exposed, you know, it just feels like probably the most vulnerable thing I've created. And so I hid it for a while, but I put it back up because it's true. It's like, it's true. That was like the most true thing that I could do with that experience, was to try to use my words and my voice to articulate it and to pay respects to this amazing woman who, you know, her life was cut a little short, and I'm sure she's free of any pain she was going through. But yeah, so it's up there now, right? And there are some loving comments on it, and I'm glad that it's there because it's the best way that I can to like honor her and our connection from that evening. But as far as the impact of it, I mean, for a while it shook me. I took a break from actually dating for a while. I was just like, I just need to like be with myself and process this a bit, went to therapy for a bit, work through it there. But what that experience did is it really opened my eyes up to like seeing everyone from a clean slate of like, you just have no concept of what people are going through. Zero. And I think it really reduced any type of first judgment of somebody, and it opened me up to like the chance encounters, like those moments, especially as an introvert, when maybe you're not feeling great or whatever, and you kind of want to not look at people in the eye, for example, or you're just, avoiding that moment of you could say hi or not say hi. Those moments now, I think back to her, I think back to the amazing connection we had, and I lean in more, and I make that extra effort to make eye contact, or I say hello to the stranger. If I like their shoes, I say, I love your shoes. Like, I'm just a little less constrained because that connection and that evening really taught me a lot about, people can be going through a lot, and there's so much magic if you're just willing to be open, right? Because that evening, I tapped her on the shoulder to say hi, but I didn't have to. I could have just not done that. It was a very simple movement of tap, tap, hi. But from that moment, it led to that amazing experience. And so it's definitely prompted me to take that risk and say hi, for example, or just to be a bit more present with people, knowing that like you just don't know what they're going through. So they're definitely a transformative experience, not what I anticipated by any means in one of my first like connections here in Austin, but it really kind of built a foundation to appreciate the connections that I would make over the next, 6 months, 12 months.
You see, this is what I'm trying to say, that yes, it was a traumatic experience, but then you see how that led to such a beautiful thing because you had that little seed of storytelling. Mm-hmm. You go through this experience, you have an outlet for YouTube, that's where the story actually comes out. You get this new learning of you don't know what other people are going through. You understand and appreciate the importance of communication and just being connected to other people. That led to that video being on my radar. And now we are having this conversation. Yeah. You never know where this conversation is going to go in the next 5 years, in the next year, in the next month when I post this video out. You don't know where it's going to go. But I feel like when you look at even the worst of the worst experiences you go through, and I know it's easier said than done. I have gone through it for the last 5 years myself. But when you really sit back and be vulnerable in that spot, it's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful thing because it's trying to teach you that you didn't know before. And if nothing else, it just made you stronger. That's how I like to think of this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you asking. And it brought that video out of me, and I can't explain it. It's one of those things that I can't logically explain how that came out of me, but also was healing. It was like a way for me to heal, was to write that, to record that, and to just sit on the couch and just say it, and to just do one take and it was done. It was just like kind of a, as hard as it was like a magical healing experience to actually articulate it. And I appreciate that you watched it and it kind of touched you. So thank you.
If nothing else, this is a prime example that you don't need to have a perfectly polished video as long as the story is powerful. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I noticed in one of the videos you mentioned you have read Gita, and I'm guessing it's because you spent so much time in India. That's where it came out of.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think when I probably read it 10 years ago. Honestly, it was like in college. I don't remember exactly how. I basically 2013 maybe started leaning towards Eastern philosophy, in part because I read The Power of Now, as many of us do, by Eckhart Tolle. And that kind of got me into some new understandings around the nature of mind and consciousness. And that led to, I don't remember. I wish I could connect the dots of how I ended up with the Gita, but the insights from that book have stuck with me, and I still pick it up as often as I can to get in touch with, particularly that insight that I mentioned in that video around you have the right to the action, but not the fruit of the action. I try to keep that top of mind, especially right now as I'm going through my creative process.
I see. After you sharing this, I think the only thing I'm afraid of right now is when my mom watches this and tells me, I have been telling you to reread that book. Why haven't you done it? Because the last time I read that book is when I was probably 14 or 15. So wow. I'm afraid of that now.
I ordered another Gita. Gosh, I ordered it so spontaneously. that I can't remember the name, and it was prompted because Naval Ravikant did a recent podcast, and he mentioned the different Gita I had never read, and so I'm excited to read it. I'll have to send it to you after. But
Yes, please. If Nawal is recommending something, I want to read that.
yeah, he did another
Absolutely.
podcast for the first time since I think like Joe Rogan. So
Yes.
it's pretty cool.
Oh, I see. Okay. Let's switch a little bit to the happier side of things
Yeah,
now.
let's do it.
Yeah, because it got too vulnerable and emotional in the last couple of minutes. In terms of you balancing your newfound journey now with YouTube, and your day is going to be completely open because you have so much extra time that was dedicated to a different job. What do you think in that you are going to fill in with self-development habits that will reflect and eventually improve your creative endeavor?
The short answer for that is easy for me because it's reading. I mean, my reading habit, so I feel like in my mid-20s, I just read like just ferociously and just consumed all types of spirituality, self-development. And over the past 5 years, I've dialed that back because to a certain extent, I kind of started to feel like it wasn't serving me in the same way. You know what I mean? Like, once you get some of the foundations, I think sometimes reading more self-help or more productivity or more spirituality is kind of just entertainment. And that's what it was becoming for me. And that's fine. I mean, it's good entertainment. Don't get me wrong. I can read spiritual books all day. It's fun to read the same concepts in different ways, but I've kind of stopped reading. But over the past 6 months, probably, I've started to pick up books from authors I had never heard of around topics I had never explored, particularly authenticity. And so like there's this woman named Martha Beck. She wrote this book called The Way of Integrity. And then I've been reading a lot of this psychoanalyst, this Jungian psychoanalyst named James Hollis. And he's pretty prolific. He's written a lot of books, and a lot of them are based around authenticity and integrity. And what I'm finding is these books now, because I have a project to work on, because I'm focused on creation, these books are serving me in a new way because it's being filtered through this lens of actually applying and problem solving in real time. So instead of reading just to keep doing my 9 to 5 and like contemplate spirituality, I'm reading as a conduit to take these different ideas and connect them. So it's been a lot more fun to read. So I want to allocate time every day just to reading something new, because now I feel like it's in service to a creative act and a piece of content where I can connect ideas that I wouldn't been able to connect previously. So that's super exciting. And then outside of that, I'll continue to take my health seriously when it comes to working out and eating as healthy as I can. I'm contemplating like just going no alcohol. I don't drink much. Maybe once a week I'll have a drink or two, but even that kind of impacts my productivity. So I'm thinking about maybe giving that up. I need to decide on that. And then the last thing is connecting with people in Austin, connecting with people like you. One thing I didn't expect in the past few months, getting more active on YouTube and having one video like the Matt video kind of get more views, is really cool people reach out to me and have reached out to me. So I've, chatted with a few people here in Austin who I want to connect with in person. I had another conversation like this with somebody else who's an entrepreneur who saw my video. So I want to spend more time just talking to people, and to have the luxury of a few spare hours in the day to just have a conversation, I think is going to be amazing. And even this conversation has me so fired up today to like get my next video out, like to go tell people that I'm doing YouTube. You know what I mean? So those are the three things, right? Reading new ideas in service of the videos, taking care of my health to make sure I'm feeling good and have the energy. And the third is just connecting with people who are doing this thing, whether it's YouTube exactly like you're doing it, or whether it's an adjacent thing, and just getting in touch with people who are thinking and creating. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited.
I see. That's great, because I think when you dive into the world of self-development, there is a weird phenomena that you want to do everything. So for example, you have a video you have to edit for the next 7 hours. But then, oh, it's 11 p.m. right now. I should be sleeping for 8 hours because that's what Matthew Walker says. That's what Andrew Huberman says, that we need to sleep 8 hours. Okay, so I'm going to be guilty that I didn't spend and stay up all night because I needed to edit this video, so I'll go to sleep. And then you wake up the next morning, 7 hours good sleep, but then you wake up again guilty because, oh, I still have to edit that video. Oh, and that keeps going on and on and on. Whenever I want to go for a run or a walk and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to listen to this. And then I open my phone and I feel like, oh, I have 10 downloaded podcasts. I should listen to one of these. Oh, wait, I have 50 books on my Audible. Which one should I read now? So even though it's such a nice thing that I'm about to go do something healthy for my life, I'm going to go and be in the nature, I just got into this bubble of just guilty phase right now that I don't know what to do just because of so many options I have in front of me. So it's important to know what you are trying to do in that moment and not worry about anything else.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. And I'm curious to see how those, because right now with time being so constrained with, working a 9 to 5 and working, more than just 9 to 5, it's like, there's not enough time to necessarily run into some of those challenges where, I have to choose between the good night's sleep and the video edit. And I was actually talking to my girlfriend about it last night of like some of those decisions and how I'm going to make those decisions. And I think it will take some course correction, but I think for me, I think I might take, I'm going to go see family for a week and spend time with them, quality time, which I don't get very often. And then from there, I think the primary thing is I know I need to execute on a video a week. And that's the thing. That's the primary driver. And if that starts to ruin my life in some way that I need to make an adjustment, I will. But like at the end of the day, I'm taking this time intentionally to do the YouTube thing. So that's going to be my primary driver. And I assume that will lead to some late night edits, but I'm excited for it.
That's nice. That's nice. See, one thing in terms of the books that you read that you mentioned is how for the last few months you stopped reading self-development books and how they are not really serving you well. Now, there is a fine difference between the two. Either they are not serving you the way you used to before, or you are in that stage of rereading it because you're looking at it from a different lens. Now, I ran across this specific topic with my dad, and he was talking about the same things, and he was reading this book, and he said, oh, he's talking the same thing that he talked in his book, and every single episode that I see on YouTube or his podcast, it's along the same lines. He's boring now. I don't want to listen to him anymore. I said, don't look at it from that angle. The way you should be looking at it is that you graduated from that beginner level. He has a specific niche of people he targets who are at that level. You were in that level too. Now it's time for you to upgrade as well. You just graduated from that level. So don't take it as a negative thing. Think of it that now you can move on to the next steps. And that could involve rereading something from a different point of angle, right? Absolutely. So that's a different way of looking at the same thing. So that's what I'm trying to teach myself when I run into something that I've read this 100 times before, but that content is probably not for me. It's for somebody else who is brand new into this industry.
Yeah, completely. And especially now that I have a specific project to aim my energy at, I'm going to see different things in these books now. It's just like, it's going to be a different book now because I'm thinking about different problems and pursuing different avenues, and totally agree that like different frameworks and self development teachers work at different paradigms. Like if you're having trouble getting out of bed and going to the gym, yeah, David Goggins is great. He'll get you out of bed. But like once you solve that problem, like you can kind of stop. You don't really need that. It's like he's a hammer. Like you use the hammer for the hammer's purpose, and then you move to the next level of whatever you need, right? And that's always you might end up dipping down where you need some Goggins in your life again. But again, it's like I kind of think about it as you integrate and then you transcend it, and you just go to the next thing that is going to serve you in your journey. And clinging on to old paradigms for too long, it'll kind of just weigh you down, because at a certain point, as you transcend it, you're thinking through the lens of these ideas, like they're kind of a part of you now. You don't need to necessarily carry them around in your backpack. You can actually act from it, and you don't even know how it happens, but it's just happening. It's like, it's just what you are, who you are now. And then you can find the next thing that's going to serve you and integrate that and transcend that until what? I don't know, until we're enlightened, I guess, but I feel like that's a few lifetimes away.
See, this is what I mean. This is why I say that you are so poetic. You said more or less the same thing I did, but I'm like, oh, this is such a nice way of saying the exact same thing. Yeah, I'm envying you right now with the choices of words that you have. That's amazing.
I appreciate that.
All right. Where do you think people can find you on YouTube channel or Instagram or any other platform you are heavily active on?
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube. It's just my name, Tyler Keenan. I think the actual URL would be Tyler J Keenan, and then you can find me on IG, Twitter as Tyler J Keenan. IG is more personal, but I'd love to connect with people there. And Twitter, I'm starting to get ramped up on, so I'll be on both of those platforms. But YouTube's going to be the focus for me, so I look forward to connecting with people and engaging there. So
that's awesome. I'll post all of these profiles in the show notes and the YouTube description. Awesome. Thank you very much for this, Tyler.
Man,
it was an amazing conversation.
Yeah, this is so much fun. It really has me energized for the day, and I look forward to continuing to connect. Hopefully we can do this again someday, and we can reflect on the insights we've had since this conversation.
For sure. And if I'm in Austin, I'm reaching out, unless you have moved out of there.
No. I think I'm going to stick around. It's a good place, and there's lots of cool, creative people around to collaborate with, so it'll be fun.
Awesome. Thank you very much for taking the time out of this, Tyler. Thank you.
Of course, man. Have a good day.
Thanks.